Despite heavy Russian counterattacks, the Ukrainian forces still managed to expand their bridgeheads over the Dnipro. We'll talk about this as well as about the political background and the troop generation by both forces, as well as obviously the developments along the other parts of the front line in this situation report. Hello and welcome. We'll start with air attacks. There was a fresh heavy air attack with Shahid drones. Ukraine reported that 38 Shahids were used against them in last night. They shot down 24 of them, which obviously means that 14 of them got through and did additional damage. We still see the Russians seemingly build up their stockpiles for a future offensive against the critical infrastructure in the near future. We'll start the developments along the front line on the eastern frontier towards Luhansk. The Russians can achieve some success northwest of Orlianka. They somewhere around here gained some additional territory and pushed the Ukrainians away. The Ukrainian counterattacks in the whole area from the whole area north of the Seversky Donetsk have been unsuccessful. The Russians do attack the Ukrainian bridges over the Oskil here close to Kupiansk. They are obviously essential for the Ukrainian resupply, for the Ukrainian lines of communication along the whole front line here. And we've seen attacks in the past on those bridges, and again a new wave of gliding FAB 500 bombs were used to attack those bridges, or the rudimentary bridges that were set up, the pontoon bridges, etc., that were set up by the Ukrainians. South of the Seversky Donetsk, the Russians continue attacking at Khomove. A huge number of attacks is reported here close to Bakhmut, but they haven't achieved anything, so we do not see any change in territory here. It's a little bit different here at Klishivka. Here is a video that has been geolocalized to upwards here, but we are really talking about a few meters. So after the Ukrainians were already established in here, they have now been spotted in the tree line here. This is like 50 meters away from previous, what do we have here? Yeah, maybe 150 meters away. So we are really talking about tiny changes in territory. Further south, nothing else to report. Russian counterattacks, Ukrainian attacks, but no changes. So we'll switch to the area of Avdiivka. The Russians had some success northwest of Krasnohorivka. They managed to expand their control somewhat in the direction of Keramik. Here, towards the coke plant, the Russians strike it heavily with artillery and aerial bombs. Again, mostly gliding bombs that are being used here. And there we do not have any confirmation yet, despite Russian claims to the contrary, that they have really crossed the railroad bridge and established a foothold on the other side. So as of now, at least to my knowledge, the coke plant is fully under Ukrainian control. Further south, though, the Russians gained additional ground. It seems, according to Ukrainian observers, the Russians should have gained somewhat in this area here, advanced somewhat further. And there is also claim that the Russians advanced somewhat along the lakes here, north of them here. But overall, again, very, very minor advances overall. Still, though, the attacks of the Russians on Avdiivka continue, even though the situation hasn't changed massively on the Ukrainian side. They are optimistic. They have stabilized the front line, but they expect it to get worse. They expect the attacks to continue and increase in size in the near future, at least when you listen to observers and to Ukrainian soldiers in place. There are also attacks at Marinka and Novomikhailivka as usually, and we do not have any change in territory here. From Vuhledar, we have some news. Vuhledar, there have been massive Russian attacks where they lost, I think, 18 armored fighting vehicles, both tanks as well as infantry fighting vehicles and APCs. They have attacked close to Vuhledar and were beaten back under heavy losses, but we see that they actually try to advance at Vuhledar again. Close to the Oblast border, I cannot see any Ukrainian attack, so the Ukrainian offensive activity seems to have stopped completely. Russian attacks continue, both close to Priutne as well as in the direction of Staromayorsk, and the Russians have roughly gained this area here, more or less everything to the northeast of roughly this line. So they advance closer to Staromayorsk along the tree line here, where there have been massive fights in the past, where they have been pushed back. Now they are regaining territory here. South of Orikhiv, I cannot record any change in territory. Both sides are reported to have attacked, but I do not see any change in territory over the last few days. The bigger change, or where we still have some movement in favor of the Ukrainians, is here at the Dnipro. The Ukrainians have set up a bridgehead over the Dnipro here at Krinkhy. Riba, the Russian military bloggers, are confirming that the Ukrainians hold territory inside of Krinkhy. Obviously, this is a pro-Russian map, so we cannot take the size of the Ukrainian advances too seriously or take them like as a final result. But it shows us that the Russians say they are both right at Poima, at Pischanivka, and at Krinkhy. We have also a report from Wargonzo that said that at the last of the listed settlements, they managed to somewhat expand their bridgehead. So on the 11th, on the 2nd of November, Wargonzo was reporting that at Krinkhy, the Ukrainians were actually still managing to extend their bridgehead further. On the Crimean Peninsula, we have some developments as well. There was an attack with missiles and with drones on Kerch. Now, initially, the report was that the bridge was attacked, but it seems like it wasn't. The talk was about at least 6 missiles being used, both the Neptune as well as Storm Shadow, and now there are reports that in the shipyard of Kerch, a Karankurt class corvette that was there either for repairs or under construction, it's not completely sure, was hit several times. The talk is about 3 hits. If that is somewhere close, then it should be a write-off as well in this regard. But again, no, it's at least the latest claims are no attack on the bridge, even though the missiles were shot right in that direction and apparently made it through, at least if we believe the preliminary reports to that, which would be an indication that the donators of the Scalp and the Storm Shadow might not have given permission to attack the bridge, or that the Ukrainians decided that the weaponry they have is not suitable to destroy the bridge. We have information about troop generation, and that is kind of weird. Now, this is a website, a news website from Kuwait, and they are saying that Hezbollah, Iran and Russia have made a deal. Iran is allowed to use the Russian airbase in northern Syria to bring in resupplies. Israel has bombed the airports where the Iranians wanted to fly in resupply to fight Israel, to basically block the runways. And Russia has now given permission to use its own airbase in Syria where Israel doesn't dare to attack. And in exchange, Hisbollah is handing over weaponry to some Arab militias inside of Syria to aid the government. But also, and this is the really weird part, Moscow will obtain a portion of the party's weapons and ammunition to supply its costly war in Ukraine. So at least if we are now at a point where we are, at least where the messages are that Hezbollah is delivering weapons towards Russia. Hezbollah has short-range artillery rockets, like Grad rockets, BM-21. Russia can surely need some more of this. So what it is in detail that Hezbollah is supposedly delivering towards Russia is unknown. I'm not really sure whether I should believe that, because it feels a little too wild. But on the other hand, maybe if Hezbollah is supposedly having somewhere between 100 and 150,000 rockets. Some claims are up to 250,000. they might well be able to spare 10,000 or 20,000 rockets in exchange for receiving shoulder-launched missiles against planes, manpads. This was the talk that supposedly 5 tons of manpads were flown in. So maybe it's true, but as said, I'm still feel like it's kind of hard to believe at this point, at least. We have reports from Russia, though. A Russian mill blogger is saying that in Perm alone, the 22 defense companies have increased their production to 250% in the last year and have hired 9,000 additional workers, showing us once more that Russia is preparing for a long war and is putting up the investment to increase its production, as we can see according to the reports, to ballistic and cruise missiles as well. We also have here an article from Japan. It's translated with Google Translate again. It's about the report for weapon deliveries to Russia from North Korea. In the last situation report, I already said that 1 million, according to South Korea, 1 million shells were delivered, probably more. And now we have it here. There's also information that in mid-October, North Korea sent rocket experts to Russia to teach them how to use North Korea's weapons. That would be a clear sign that North Korea isn't just delivering artillery shells, maybe some Grad rockets or something, some compatible weapon systems, because you usually don't need a trainer to use different types of artillery shells. You might need a paper that says it has this ballistic characteristics, so you need to change your settings in the artillery piece like this, but that should more or less be it. If they need to send trainers, that means they have received, or they are going to receive, completely new systems where the Russians can't handle it. That can be different rocket artillery, or that could even be ballistic missiles. There is talk for a while that Russia wants to acquire ballistic missiles, both from Iran and, in that case, maybe from North Korea. So as of now, we do not know the details, but that's a sign that North Korea might actually have delivered weapon systems as well, not just artillery shells and anti-tank guided missiles, as it was initially said. And we have a video here. Russia is setting up, has set up production for new loitering munitions, so kamikaze drones, as they're also being called. This is not the Lancet. They are supposedly worse than the Lancet, but at the same time supposedly much cheaper to produce and thus more available, as the Lancet is still challenging to be produced. We see the wings here, and here we see the connected pieces once they are done. Another sign how Russia increases its production to face the new problems and the new challenges in their own way. Russia has also seems to only aim at, seems to limit the punishment for the rioters in the anti-Semitic riots in Dagestan. According to reports, only those who attacked policemen are supposed to be punished. The rest of the mob, the rest of the rioters are not going to be touched. How you want to interpret this is more or less up to you. I read an interpretation that Russia wants to make sure it doesn't alienate its Muslim population too much by taking up too much of the side of the Jewish population in this regard. But I don't know whether that's going too wide or not. As said, it's up to you how you want to interpret it. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, not my first language, but I'm pretty sure you got the point. Also, we have Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. He's considering whether or not to hold presidential elections in spring next year. Generally, in March would have been the date for new presidential election, as his 5-year term is up. But in case of war, in case of martial law, the constitution says there aren't elections. This isn't extraordinary. In Germany, for instance, the law is exactly the same. In case of war, there are no fresh elections. It kind of makes sense because this is going to be a massive undertaking. How are people that are prisoners of war supposed to vote? How are the soldiers in the trenches on the front line going to vote? How are the refugees in other countries going to vote? Or the locally internally displaced persons? The challenge for Ukraine will be massive to set up a presidential election, but apparently Zelensky wants to make sure to basically quench every every criticism that his legitimacy might be void after not holding a fresh election. As said, the challenges are obvious and very big, and the Ukraine is also asking for financial aid of foreign countries to even allow for that election, as it clearly will cost a lot of money, which Ukraine doesn't really have to spare as of not right now. When it comes to international support, the Archer artillery system is now confirmed to be in Ukraine. The first systems have been delivered from Sweden and are now in usage by Ukraine. We also have the Netherlands announcing an aid package of 500 million euros, mostly ammunition going to be delivered into the next year. And we have the US sending another package of 425 million. You can see what it's in here for NASAMS air defense system, HIMARS, artillery shells, anti-tank weapons, small arms, ammunition, mines, etc., etc. Different types of equipment that Ukraine will need to continue its fight against Russia. There's also a report from Germany that the RCH-155 artillery that Ukraine has ordered is not going to be delivered to Ukraine until the end of 2024. So they'll have to wait at least an additional year until the first artillery pieces are going to be delivered. Ukraine itself is developing its own weapons, though, at least according to these reports here from Ukraine. They have successfully tested a ballistic missile with a range of 700 kilometers, which is possible to extend it to 1,000 kilometers. This is supposedly showing the range, so it could even hit targets in St. Petersburg. They are going to set up serial production, the Ukrainians are saying. That's what the Ukrainians are saying as of now. Obviously, I do not have any further details about that, at which point a serial production might start, to which degree, to which numbers it might reach, etc. No information, no detailed information having arrived yet. And we have news that the first M1150 assault breacher vehicles have arrived. They are in service of the United States for at least 10 years, I think. And they have arrived 5 months after Ukraine has faced the toughest minefields probably since World War II. What the decision was to wait until now is a mystery to me, but I'll leave it up to you to decide and write in the comment section why you think the US have waited until now to deliver the specialized equipment to clear minefields and to breach minefields until a point where most of Ukraine's combat power in the south has already been spent. And we have a small video to finish it all off, where you can see a Ukrainian boat on supposedly on the Dnipro or in one of the lakes here, showing its camouflage to apparently make it close to impossible to see it here. This reminds somewhat of the HNLMS Abraham Grinsen. Yeah. It was a minesweeper that camouflaged itself to look like an island to flee the Japanese in 1942 when they invaded the Dutch East Indies. We have something like that here. I guess at least if it doesn't move, you probably will have a hard time seeing that it's a boat at all, at least once they get rid of the masts here. But yeah, that's it from me for now. If you like this report, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. What do you think about the current developments? And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.